Hello everyone and welcome to another video. There are two entities in the world of chess that are good at generating views. And those two entities are Mittens and GothamChess. So I figured in this video, let me face them off against each other. Now, Mittens has been one of the strongest chess bots and Levy's bot is rated around 2500. So you'd think that Mittens should be able to beat it quite easily. But nothing was farther from the truth. These two bots fought it out till the very death. And you guys are in for an exciting game. So let's have a look. Levy started the game off with the move e4, and Mittens responded with the Sicilian defense. Knight c3, knight c6, and g3. This is known as the closed Sicilian. The open Sicilian generally starts with knight f3, followed by a quick d4. Knight c3, knight c6, g3, and Mittens plays the main line g6 and bishop g7, d3, d6, bishop e3, and Mittens plays knight f6, knight g2, castles, bishop d7, all pretty standard so far. Levy plays h3, making sure that there's never any knight g4 jumps. And here Mittens makes a slightly odd decision. It decides to play the move e5. Now, I don't quite like this move because you block in your own bishop. You can go for the setup if your knight is still on g8 and put it on e7, but here, I don't quite like it. Maybe Mittens should have played something like rook b8 followed by b5. Alright, but after move e5, I thought Levy should play a move like f4 or maybe queen e2. But Levy decides to play the move bishop g5, trying to trade off the bishop for the knight, but generally you know that bishops are better than knights, so I'm not quite sure about this decision. Mittens just plays h6, takes the bishop pair, and tucks his bishop back, a3, and Mittens decides to start gaining space on this side of the board. Queen e2, a5, f4 by Levy, trying to create counterplay on this side of the board. Maybe Mittens should have just taken a pawn on b2. I don't know, but decides to play it very safe with the move knight e7. And Levy decides to trade and play the move f5. A good move. Now, if white has the option to go knight c3 and knight at d5, white's in pretty good shape. So Mittens decided to stop that with the move b4. Levy goes c3, so in case Mittens takes, he can recapture with the knight and still get access to the d5 square. And here Mittens goes queen g5. Just taking the game into the endgame, but, you know, it does simplify the position quite a bit. And Levy decides to take on g6 and trade off a pair of rooks as well. So maybe Levy is able to hold this game. Who knows? He decides to take on b4. Mittens recaptures and goes rook a6, going after the weak pawn on d6. So Mittens defends it with rook f6. But now after takes, and rook b6, the pawn on b4 is suddenly hard to defend. And if white can take this pawn, then the knight can get active again. But Mittens here finds a very neat way to create counterplay with the move g4. Attacking this pawn, and if white takes, black takes, and all of a sudden this knight does not have a good square. So Levy decides to keep it close with the move h4, but now Mittens activates his other bishop with bishop to h6, and the bishop wants to come here. So Levy decides to take, bishop e3 check, king h2, and Mittens plays bishop e6. It could have also played rook f2 right away, but white always still has the move knight c3. Alright, so bishop e6, rook b7, and Mittens played rook f7. And if I was Levy here, I would be pretty upset that my bot did not take on f7. Because I think if white takes here and plays knight c3, I don't think there's a real way white can lose this game. White can always put his knight on d5, bring out the bishop again to e2, put pressure on this pawn, and white's up a pawn. So it's going to be really difficult for black to generate any counter chances. But maybe Levy wanted to go for the win. He played rook b8 check, rook f8, again, just trade the rooks and save the draw against Mittens. But he won here, but now Mittens went bishop c8. Attacking the rook, and the bishop wants to come around a6 and put pressure on this pawn. Rook c7, bishop a6, How do you defend this pawn on d3 all of a sudden? If you go rook c3, if you go rook c3, well then rook f2 will be pretty nasty and the knight does not have a good square. So Levy won rook c6, takes and rook c3, pretty clever defense. So that if black takes on e2, we can take the bishop on e3. But Mittens played rook f2. Takes. And we get into this position with opposite color bishops, but white's bishop on g2 is really passive. This pawn on g4 is really limiting its mobility. And white's king is also kind of stuck here. But is it enough for black to win? Black first of all has to make sure to defend this pawn and then see if it can round up the pawn on b2. g7, b4, rook b2. Levy gave a check and played rook d5. So he's ready to give back the pawn on b4. White cannot take an e5 because of a check. And bishop d4 check with a discovery and winning the rook. So Levy made some love for the king by playing bishop h1. Now Mittens gave a check. king over, and bishop d4. All right, good move. And rook b2 now becomes a threat, and white's king will have to step back. So Levy went here, Mittens took the pawn, and rook d8. Again, it looks like black is better, because black's bishop on d4 is much more active than white's bishop on h1, sorry. But is it going to be enough to win? It's all on one flank. White defends upon e4. Maybe black can at some point go after the bishop, after the pawn on g3. So let's see how Mittens tries to grind out this endgame. He gives a check, puts a rook on b1, and Levy gives a check and pushes and moves his rook over to c8. Now here, I was quite surprised that Mittens did not just give a check, play bishop f2, and rook b3. To me, that would look like a pretty straightforward way to make progress. The pawn on g3 will fall, maybe also the pawn on h4, and then the black king can come forward. And I think black's objectively winning. But Mittens played rook b2. Now Levy gave a check. He put his rook on c8. And they started shuffling back and forth. Again, a check, rook here, and rook c3. Very important, making sure that black cannot go rook a3 and go after the pawn on g3. So rook d2, rook b3, rook c2. Again, they kept shuffling back and forth. Check, here, rook back. And Mittens decided to change up the position with the move g5. Now, the move g5 trades off one pair of pawns, but after black played here, eventually black will take, but it does open up the h-file, which could give black some additional resources. Levy decides to sit. Here we have the move rook c8, threatening rook h8, which would win the bishop because bishop h3 would be the only legal move. So bishop f1 was played, takes, and rook a2. So everything looking better and better for Levy. He's traded off one pair of pawns, and he's getting closer and closer to the draw. But Mittens keeps pushing. Bishop e1, rook c3 is the idea, so Levy goes here. And bishop g2, rook e here, check, and back. And they repeat the position. But again, the question really is like, how is black going to make progress? So Levy keeps sitting on the position. He gives a check. But rook here seems to be quite a mistake. I think Levy should have just kept sitting on the position with rook a2, making sure that black cannot easily put his bishop on f2 and go after the pawn on g3. But after the move, rook a8, Mittens now gives a check, gives another check, and goes rook c3. And all of a sudden, how is white going to defend the pawn on g3? And again, if the pawn on g3 falls, the king can also step up. The g-pawn will get extremely strong, so it's going to be very difficult for white to hold the draw here. Levy decided to activate his bishop through b5, but it feels like now the pawn on g4 will always be very tough to stop. So he brought his bishop back. But here, Mittens brings in the king. He goes king f6. And again, how are we going to stop this king from marching forward? Rook g8, g3. Maybe Levy just had to sit here with a move like rook g4, but he gives a check. And now Mittens' king steps up even further. And there's nothing really white can do. If you go king up, there will always be a check. This leads to checkmate. And well, if you go back, then check and mate. So pretty tough. Levy played rook d8, bishop e3 check, and a check. Now, perhaps he had to step the king up, but this rook endgame is quite hopelessly lost because the g-pawn is just going to push forward. So Levy played bishop to e2, takes, and king f3, rook e1. Black's up a piece now, so it should just be lost, but he kept fighting, check. He took the pawn, and now bishop f4, rook h3, and rook e3. Black trades off the rooks. King up, king up. Mittens moved his bishop out of the way, king f4, bishop e7, and took the pawn on e4. Now black is going to advance the e-pawn down the board. So it's soon going to be queen, and combined with the bishop, it will go after white's king. Queen c3. Black is starting to close down the mating net around white's king, and it's clear that this game is not going to last much longer. And after bishop c3, it was checkmate. So Mittens wins this game, but Levy fought valiantly. He lost after 110 moves. I have not seen any other bot last that long against Mittens. Like the Car bot, the Magnus bot, they all lost after something like 70 moves. So losing after 110 moves against one of the strongest bots in the world is nothing to be ashamed of, but it felt like Levy was pretty close to a draw. Anyway, I hope all of you guys enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one.